Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Max Griffin to defeat Michael Morales. And I'm here to talk about Sean Strickland versus Magomedov, Abus Magomedov, the entire fight card. And I'm going to start at the top with Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland looked incredible. This is one of his finest moments in the UFC. Probably his finest, considering it was a main event and the way he looked in this fight. But maybe it's not his best victory. That Brendan Allen win is only getting better with age. But this was probably his finest moment, Sean Strickland. He didn't have a great first round. Abus came out of the gate really hot, was beating the shit out of him with kicks, and every strike he threw was powerful. And of course, there was an eye poke, which I should mention because it paused the fight for 5 minutes almost, or 3 minutes. Strickland was fucked up by that, and he even said in the post-fight press conference he was still seeing double. So he showed a lot of grit, a lot of heart, and a lot of cardio and boxing as well. Sean Strickland was able to take over this fight in round 2. Before the round began, Abus was breathing heavily, and Sean just smelt the blood in the water. Maybe 30 seconds, a minute into the round, he just started pouring it on. Up the volume, up the power. He was just going for it. And Abus was overwhelmed. It took him 3 or 4 minutes to get overwhelmed, but in the end, he was overwhelmed. He didn't have anything for Sean Strickland, and if that was round 2, I'd hate to imagine what 3, 4, and 5 would have looked like. So it seemed like an inevitability, and Strickland just got him out of there within 1 round after turning the fight around. Incredible performance from Sean Strickland. We didn't really learn that much more about him. It just reinforced everything we do know about him. He's a gritty son of a bitch. He's got an incredible cardio and a great work rate, specifically his boxing. And he's one of the best fighters in the world. Abus Magomedov, he's got cardio concerns. No doubt about it. And there could have been a body shot or something that took some of the life from him or whatever. This shit always happens in fighting, but no matter what, it's a bad look to be that dead in round 2, especially knowing he trained, for a full camp for a 5-round fight. And he had to know Sean Strickland's a guy that's going to do well down the stretch. Of course, down the stretch ended up being like 7 minutes into the fight here, but he had to know that, and he was not prepared for it. He just had nothing in round 2. It looked like a typical youngster being overwhelmed by a veteran. Coming out of the gate hot, winning round 1, doing well, and then having nothing left for the next 20 minutes. And, of course, it only took another 4 minutes because Strickland just overwhelmed him again. So, Magomedov, definitely the next time I talk about him, you'll hear me express serious doubts about his cardio. I'm assuming he's not going to be in a 5-round fight, to be fair, considering he's 1-1 in the UFC now, and that was one of those there are levels to this sport type of fights. So I expect him to be knocked down a peg or 2, but even in a 3-rounder, I'm going to have cardio doubts here at the UFC level. But against a guy like Sean Strickland, who is first and foremost the guy above anybody else to exploit potential cardio issues, this was just an eye-opener. He had nothing for Sean Strickland, and it was a good fight for a round or so, and then that was it. He didn't belong in the cage with him after that. Great win for Sean Strickland. This was his finest moment in the UFC, I want to say. And, of course, he made the most of it on the mic and at the press conference. The guy is really entertaining, even if he's a fucking lunatic. But I love Sean Strickland. I think he's now in the realm of fighting for a title. He did lose to Jared Cannonier. And, of course, Cannonier, I don't even know where he's at, who he's fighting next or whatever. But I want to say, despite the loss, Strickland is still right there with Cannonier. Both guys are in the realm of filling in for someone in a title shot next if they get injured or whatever. And even though Cannonier beat him, Strickland is the fresher matchup, never fought Israel Adesanya, and, of course, the Cannonier fight with Adesanya was not thrilling for Izzy, Jared, or the fans. So there's that. But overall, Sean Strickland, he looked incredible. My fucking sun-dried tomatoes are burning. But he looked incredible, and we didn't learn that much more about him again, but it just reinforced everything we do know about him, which is he's an awesome fighter, great boxing, great cardio, an insane work rate. And that's good enough to win at the main event level. I'm glad Sean Strickland has become a main eventer in the last few years. Ever since he came back from his injury, ever since he stepped up to middleweight, he has really made the sport very exciting. And kind of like Israel Adesanya, he fights more than most. Sean Strickland probably fights more than anybody. I feel like, I see him every few months. And he's definitely one of those cowboy types. Take the fight on short notice. He's comfortable in the cage, fighting anybody. So, great win for Sean Strickland. Tough loss for Magomedov. That guy's got to regroup and probably hit the treadmill right alongside me. Grant Dawson beats Ismagulov. Grant Dawson said, this kid, he wanted people to say, this kid can fight or some shit. I don't know. Whatever he wanted to say, that's what I want to say about him. This kid can go or whatever. He is an incredible fighter, Grant Dawson. Really a dominant wrestler, dominant grappler, more so than a wrestler, although his wrestling was certainly there for him tonight. He is suffocating on top. Just suffocating. Damir was really sound defensively, but not with that first level, the body triangle. And Grant was working him with that body triangle every round. Totally dominant. He had a few close rear naked chokes, as will happen if you have the body triangle for 15 minutes. But, again, Ismagulov's really tough guy to get out of there. Never been finished. But now it's 2 losses in a row to 2 of the best grapplers in the division. But my estimation of Grant Dawson has skyrocketed. I thought Grant looked incredible. I thought he was doing well on the feet, too. Not that it was, the most obvious, not that it was a big striking battle or anything, but Grant was throwing, and it's all a means to an end. But you know what? He found that end. He hit the takedown every round. And I think this guy can fight the best in the world. I'm the guy that said for a few years, Damir Ismagulov, Mateusz Gamrot, Arman Tsarukyan, and Guram Kutateladze are all guys that can fight for the title. I have since revised that notion there, ever since both guys were defeated last night, Damir and Guram. But I just think Grant Dawson has put himself into title contention here. His next fight is going to be a big one. Like he said, he's looking for a name or a rank. And whatever it is, I expect big things from him. God help Tony Ferguson if they lock him in a cage with Grant Dawson. But I think Grant Dawson is going to take some big scalps coming up in the next few years, and he could very well win the title. Guy's fucking awesome. For Damir Ismagulov, that's 2 losses in a row, and they both looked similar. I know Grant is, I think he's better certainly than Arman Tsarukyan on the mat, with his control and his overall grappling game. But those are 2 of the best grapplers in the division. No shame in losing to them. But for a guy that hasn't lost in a long, long time, or hadn't lost in a long, long time, to suffer 2 losses like that back-to-back with a retirement in between, it's got to be discouraging. Credit to him for taking the fight. It was a difficult matchup. I'm sure he knew this could go the way of the Tsarukyan fight, and it did. But he didn't get finished, and he's still a very good fighter. Damir Ismagulov is now one of the most underrated fighters in the division, as is Guram Kutateladze, and maybe Elvis Brener as well. But, tough loss for him. Michael Morales beat Max Griffin. I thought Michael Morales looked really good in this fight. I picked Max Griffin to win, and I thought he was doing well early on. Max is a difficult guy to out-wrestle, and not a bad wrestler himself, but really brings the pressure, the wrestle-boxer pressure. And I really like his work rate. But Michael Morales was in this fight from the very beginning, never let Max take over. In fact, you could argue Michael took over. On paper, he did anyway. I thought Max won round 1, but Morales won rounds 2 and 3. And he looked really good at range, disciplined, not throwing wild, not making, not burning himself out like Magomedov. And everything that guy throws is deadly. Leg kicks, punches, they're deadly. And he was able to throw hard for 15 minutes, neutralize Max Griffin, and in the end, win the wrestling battle. So, Great win for Michael Morales. That's now his third win in the UFC. The first one by decision, and that's extra impressive in my opinion. It's impressive as well, getting a third-round finish, even though that was over Adam Fugit, who's a little more vulnerable. But to beat Max Griffin and out-hustle him says a lot about your future. So, solid win for Michael Morales. And for Max Griffin, he gave it a good go. And this is a loss that might age a lot better. Might age very well, I should say. If Michael Morales does the things that some guys expect him to do. Gritty effort from Max Griffin, but he was up against a fucking beast. A 24-year-old beast, who was a lot bigger, by the way. Ariane Lipski gets a big win over Melissa Gatto. This was a close fight, but Lipski, in my opinion, got the better of her. She was better, the better range striker and better wrestler, too. They're, difficult to take down. She was winning the wrestling battle, whether it's a judo battle or wrestling battle, whatever. She was the one that found top position, and Melissa Gatto, as skilled as she is, and she's skilled on the feet and on the ground, but she was largely neutralized there and really ran into a girl that won the physicality battle, Lipski. Melissa Gatto, she's a solid athlete herself, but Ariane Lipski was a little bigger, a little stronger, and a little more refined as a striker. And I thought she clearly won this fight, although it was close, and really came through. That big win for her as an underdog. And for Melissa Gatto, she's got to develop a better wrestling game. And I don't even know what kind of top game she has, to be honest. I know she's very skilled off her back, but she's definitely a girl that needs to be grappling more than she needs to be striking, and you need wrestling to ensure that. So she's really got to sharpen up her wrestling while she's still here in her prime in the UFC. But this was an eye-opening loss, because Ariane Lipski is a beatable girl, especially if you're able to put her on the ground. She got taken out in round 2 by Antonina Shevchenko and Montana De La Rosa, even though Montana's a better grappler. But Melissa Gatto, who is overall a very good grappler, she is not, a versatile grappler, and wasn't able to wrangle the superior athlete in Lipski, and that took a lot of her options off the table, and Lipski shined here, really thrived in this fight. Great win for Ariane Lipski. She's still beautiful. And Melissa Gatto, tough loss for her. She's definitely a tough girl, very skilled, but starting to look a little limited. That would bring us to Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis versus Ismael Bonfim. This was a very impressive victory for Benoit Saint-Denis. Very, very impressive. Came out of the gate red hot with those kicks, looking exactly like Abus Magomedov. But, man, those kicks are deadly. And then Bonfim, I thought, was about to take over with the boxing. Took away the kicks, started to find his range. And, nope. Turns out there was a whole nother phase to that round. And that was Benoit ripping him to the mat and strangling him. This was kind of how I expected the Terrence McKinney fight to go. Terrence McKinney's a round 1 beast. Ismael Bonfim, even though his losses are many, many years ago, and 2 of them are to current elite fighters, they were all by submission in the first round. I think they were first rounds. Either way, they're all by submission. And now it's no coincidence he's got 4 losses spread out over the course of 10, 15 years, and they're all by decision. 10 years, I should say, and they're all by submission. Benoit Saint-Denis, just a very skilled grappler, really, really skilled, very deadly, all finishes, I believe. The one decision is his loss to Zaleski dos Santos, and he exploited Ismael Bonfim, made him look limited. That submission defense, which I'm assuming is his primary hole, the primary hole of his in his game, it reared its ugly head here. And it took a savvy grappler like Benoit Saint-Denis to make it happen, but also a solid athlete and a good wrestler who was able to get him down in the first place. Bonfim, I still think he's a very, very skilled fighter. All he's got to do is rewatch that perfect debut against Terrence McKinney. But he's got some vulnerabilities. And, this definitely... this was an eye-opening loss. I feel like I say that for every loss. But he's a guy that hasn't been defeated in almost 10 years. And now he loses again, and it looked like his losses 10 years ago. So, Again, no coincidence. It's by submission. And Benoit Saint-Denis, he's fucking, no longer underrated. He's 3-1 in the UFC now, all finishes aside from the decision loss. And the sky's the limit. I really like Benoit Saint-Denis. Ismail Bonfim, I think, is a good fighter, and the win will get better with age. But this on paper, in retrospect, looked like a bad stylistic matchup for him. And Benoit Saint-Denis got it done. Incredible victory, round 1 submission, and he moves on. Nursultan Ruziboev knocked out Bruno Ferreira. This was just a case of reach, height and reach. He had 6 inches of height. I don't know about the reach, but again, I'm sure it was substantial. And he caught him with a beautiful counter. Beautiful counter right on the chin, and one punched him. And then I think he followed up, but either way, it took one punch. Great win for Ruziboev. Guy, as I said, he's more of a submission artist based on what I've seen, but I've also seen a good amount of his knockouts, and he brings it. He's got knockouts, multiple finishes with knees and kicks and everything else, but, the punches, they're always going to be there for him, and he's going to be able to exploit reach disadvantages pretty well. And that's what he did against Bruno Ferreira. Ferreira, this is his first loss, and of course it's by knockout, so moving forward might be some concerns there. But Ruziboev, he's a welcome addition to the UFC. Guy is a very skilled fighter, very potent finisher, and now he's been in the octagon for 1 minute, and he's 1-0 with a knockout. So really excited to see that guy fight again. Rinat choked out Kevin Lee. He clubbed and subbed him. This was a shitty loss for Kevin Lee. I like Kevin Lee. I've been a fan of his for a long time. Before, he gained a lot of traction and everybody started to like him. And it hurt to see him just get smoked like this. And every strike Rinat was landing in that minute looked incredible. Every jab looked like a knockout jab. Every kick looked like a fucking knockout kick. That's a term. And he just looked incredibly deadly. Lee is he's older now. He's a little more weathered. Whatever, injuries and layoffs and all this horse shit. Making his return to the UFC. He had a lot of shit going against him, and he was expected to lose. He was an underdog. But no one's gone through him like this. Even Leonardo Santos, it didn't look like this. This was a very tough loss for Kevin Lee. He looked very vulnerable there. Of course, when you get clubbed and subbed, it makes you look extra vulnerable. But just a really, really shit loss. And Rinat Fakhretdinov, that guy got an awesome win. The wins that he had over Brian Battle and Andreas Michailidis were impressive in that he smothered those guys for 15 minutes straight, which is very impressive in its own right. But this, knocking a guy half dead and then choking him full dead in a minute, that's extra impressive. And Kevin Lee is a former title challenger, for the interim title anyway. So, finest victory for him. The sky's the limit. I don't know who's going to want to be locked in a cage with that fucking guy next, but good luck. If he doesn't kill you in a minute, he's going to suffocate you for 15. And for Kevin Lee, he's definitely got to take some time off. He looked fucked up there. And, give it another go. I think, to be honest, he said he's sticking at 170. That's his weight now. I think he'd be better off at 155 if he was able to make the cut. I know the cut takes something from you, and if you have to do it consistently, it takes a lot from you. But Rinat was a lot bigger, stronger, and more powerful here. I think the strength would have shown itself in the wrestling realm too, but it never got there. So, Kevin Lee's got some thinking to do, but Rinat Fakhretdinov comes away unscathed, probably, I don't know. I was listening to an interview with Jim Miller where he said he broke his thumb in his last fight, which lasted 23 seconds. So shit happens, but I hope to see Rinat fight soon. Joe Anderson Brito beat Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson went for the knee bar, and I was impressed with that. Of course, it bit him in the ass and he got finished, and you can look at him and say, hey, you idiot, That's why you never hang on a leg, like I think some of the commentators were saying. But I feel like that still might have been his best course, going after the leg, going after it early. He took the fight on short notice. I don't know if he had everything in him to, duplicate the Bill Algeo performance. Certainly not the other intangibles like toughness, grit, and all that Algeo has. But he definitely had a good submission game, and he made the most of it, gave himself a shot. He had Joe Anderson in some trouble. Right at the very end, I thought he was in a good bit of trouble. But Joe Anderson got out of it, sat heavy on that leg, and pounded the shit out of him. The leg locks, if they don't work out, you're fucked. And that's what happened. He was fucked. But still gave himself a good shot at getting a big upset. And then it didn't work out, and the fight went about the way we expected it to go. Joe Anderson Brito got the knockout. Even though Weston Wilson's been submitted a lot more than he's been knocked out, this is only his second knockout loss. But Joe Anderson Brito was always going to have that advantage, and he got him out of there early. Great win for Joe Anderson Brito, and for Weston Wilson again. You can kick him while he's down and say, hey, you shouldn't have hung on that leg. And, in retrospect, maybe he shouldn't have. But I think he probably should have. I think he gave himself a good go of it, and it just didn't work out. He was really up against it here. Karol Rosa beat Yana Santos. This was kind of how I expected the fight to go. Santos was working very well early on. Good range striking, crowding her in the clinch, doing a really good job crowding her in the clinch. Looked to be the stronger girl. But Rosa started to find her range in round 2, the middle of round 2, and really took over the second half of this fight. I thought Yana just didn't have the the cardio and the skill set to maintain whatever she was doing in round 1 and crowd Karol Rosa and neutralize her. Karol Rosa wouldn't be neutralized. It became more of a fight in the second half, and Karol Rosa was pulling ahead. Thought she lost round 1, but won rounds 2 and 3. It was a close enough fight, but in my opinion, Rosa definitely won. And I think that was a unanimous decision. But either way, tough loss for Yana Santos. She's been finished a few times, of course, in the UFC, but lately it's been by decision, and she's just, she's only getting older. She's got a kid now. She's a mother, and I don't know. The work rate just wasn't there. But good win for Karol Rosa, who's a little younger, entering her prime, and scratch and clawed for a solid victory here. Elvis Brener takes out Guram Kutateladze. Look, this is, if I were to break down fights, which I always say I should do this, and I really just should do this, there are 6 outcomes, aside from a draw and whatever, for a fight. Knockout, submission, or decision for each fighter. And of course, the round varies as well. But the last pick of mine, of all 6 options, would have been Elvis Brener by TKO. And the last pick definitely would have been TKO in round 3. But that's what happened. Brener he was in there very tough from the beginning. Guram came out and looked to be the superior striker. But Brener showed everybody he could take it. Was able to rip Guram to the mat on 2 occasions, which definitely slowed him down. And of course scored points for Brener, even though in the end points didn't matter. But Guram, was doing well off his back. Pretty much took away any jiu-jitsu plan of Elvis Brener. Guram's very sound there. But then the fight was fought mostly on the feet. And Elvis Brener just had more grit, probably better cardio, and definitely underrated striking. He's a guy who I think he had 1 TKO victory in his entire career. And now this is his second one, and it comes over Guram Kutateladze, which, trust me when I tell you, it's a win that will get better with age. Guram is now officially underrated again. And Brener, I forget the odds. I don't know what the odds were, plus 600 or something. He was a big underdog, and he did not look like it. Right from the get-go, this looked like a very competitive fight, and then down the stretch, he looked like the better fighter. I was still thinking he might lose a decision, if it goes to a decision, pretty close fight, whatever. But no, he didn't let it get there. He would have won a decision anyway with how he was doing in round 3, but he never let it get there. Just knocked him out. hit him in a weird spot behind the ear, whatever the fuck it was. But pretty much one shot took took Guram out of the fight. He went down to a knee, and Brener pounced on him. Great win for Elvis Brener, and I mean that. Excellent win for Elvis Brener. The sky's the limit with him. It's one of those examples where I do think he was robbed. I do think Zubera Tukagov was robbed against him, but sometimes it's like just destiny. These great fighters will win a bad decision, and it's the way it should have been all along. And I'm glad Elvis Brener got that bullshit decision. Now I am, even though, at the time of the fight I bet against him, so I wasn't too thrilled. But here, seeing him get this win over Guram Kutateladze, I'm very happy that he's now 2-0 in the UFC and has beaten two really, really good fighters. Elvis Brener, the sky's the limit. Can't fucking wait to see that guy fight again. And Guram Kutateladze, he's definitely looks a little more vulnerable now. Got some concerns, cardio and whatever wise, but still, he showed to be an excellent fighter himself, and at least early on, really, really sharp on the feet. Luana Carolina beat Ivana Petrovic. This was a very good win for Luana Carolina. I thought she out-hustled her overall. I was pleasantly surprised, having bet on her, that she got the takedowns and she was able to win the top game battle. She had really good hips. Anytime there was a scramble, she was the one getting her hips up and getting the top position. And on the feet, I thought she was superior. Ivana Petrovic matched her physically, but technically she couldn't match her. Luana was much faster, had much better movement, really in and out, controlling the range with her movement, and got the better of her throughout the whole fight, I thought. Great win for Luana Carolina. Came through big as an underdog and hands Ivana Petrovic her first loss. And for Petrovic, not a bad way to lose your first fight, fighting a seasoned UFC fighter. My Alfredo sauce. She fought like a seasoned fighter, Luana Carolina. And I think she would have won this fight anywhere it went. And she really did. She had a great work rate and looked like the seasoned vet out there. Much more comfortable fighting hard for 15 minutes at the UFC level. And that brings us to the final fight. Alexander Romanov takes out Bogoy Ivanov. This was not how I envisioned the fight going. Bogoy Ivanov, he's tough as all fuck. I mean, it's how I envision all of his losses going, to be honest. They look exactly like that. But I still thought Romanov really impressed me. I had him pegged as a guy that's just a one-round fighter who will turn to shit after round one, especially in a competitive fight. And you know what? Round one was competitive. It was his worst round, and I still thought he won it. But that's definitely Bogoy's best round. And after that, Romanov was the one that started to do well down the stretch. Really fighting well at range, which was a new wrinkle to him. Not that I haven't seen him strike, but to see him fight like that against a guy like Bogoy Ivanov for 3 rounds and win the range striking battle was really impressive. And of course, there were takedowns as well. He ripped him to the mat and wasn't able to go full Donkey Kong because Bogoy's a really tough guy to dominate, but Romanov at the very least sealed the deal with that round. And Bogoy Ivanov, he's too limited as a striker. He was too limited to really make shit happen. Obviously, he's not Alexander Volkov, but I don't think he's Marcin Tybura either on the feet. He's much more of a brawler. Definitely up against it in the speed department and the reach department. So he's trying to time counters, and he did time some really nice counters. But overall, Romanov, with his speed and his range control, he won this fight and looked really good doing so. It's really good for a guy like that to get a 3-round decision victory because that's his primary weakness. Still is, in my opinion, his cardio and, mainly his cardio and his striking, I guess, too. But he answered a lot of questions here and looked very good doing so. I don't even know what their rankings are or whatever, but I'm pretty sure Bogoy is ranked, and Romanov got a 3-round decision victory over a ranked fighter. He's back. And that's pretty much it. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.